Hey, this is Max. Welcome back to another CSR2 video. I'm here with Veteran Noob's account, and this is part 16 of my adventures in CSR2. At this point in my career, as a semi-veteran player, live racing becomes key. Live racing is what it's all about for RP generation. Sure, you can do Showdown, but guess what? As a newer player, your chance of having the right Showdown car fully maxed is next to zero. Which means if you're trying to make 1.5 million a season, oh wow. So I jump from here to here. Notice it's glitching and giving me both. I don't have two accounts in here. But if you're trying to make 1.5 million, you cannot avoid live racing. For newer players, what makes a good live racer? Well, let's talk about it by looking at the ones I use for live racing. First of all, this is my first car that I got, and I used it extensively as a live racer because this is a good starting option for most newer players. Why? Because it fits all the little points that we look for in live racing. You hear Danny Lightning say this, you hear me saying this. In the slower lobbies, I'm not talking about 9.0 and faster, I'm not talking about 7s and 6s. In the slower lobbies, if you can get a T5 car or T4 car with low points here, high points there, with at least 1-to-3 ratio or greater, you tend to have a car that will do well in live. How you achieve that varies. There's no magical way. I know, the easiest way usually is transmission, tire, and nitrous with low upgrades, with high trans upgrades, and then you can throw in other parts. But really what you want to do is get the lowest number here and the highest number there on any given combination, and you'll be fine. Key things for any car, fusions. One of the biggest mistakes newer players make is they build a live racer that they have no fusions for. You are going to waste your effort. Your car is going to be slow, the evo is going to be low, and you're not going to have a car that's going to be viable. Like this, okay? Yes, I deleted this because, well, I needed to elite something. I didn't have any other options, and this is actually a viable live racer once I get the right parts and fusions, and I've been slowly but surely working on it. Notice the important parts are now pretty much filled, although I do need to fill in more, but the key components are here. This car though is a little bit what I call S6 dependent, meaning it really doesn't shine that well without stage 6s, and you kind of have to look for stage 6s because you lose a lot of points here if you don't do it right. Right now this is probably a good setup for it to be okay in live, but I'm not necessarily pushing for that. I'm hoping with the new event coming I can keep building this car. Lamborghinis tend to make pretty decent live racers, and this particular Lamborghini is actually okay. Not every Lamborghini is good, but there's some outstanding ones in the game right now. The SV Diablo's good. The SC63, when set up properly, is quite good. And the Seine Roadster is also very good. But what you want to do is kind of find out what can your car do, right? Where do you launch it? How do you launch it? How well does it do? One thing to note is that a dyno beating car, okay, is a great concept, but for really fresh new players, having a car that destroys dyno may not be that great for you. We'll talk about that when we jump in live. I am not getting the launch on this car. That's what's screwing me up. That brings me up to the point that a good live racer should be one that's easy to drive. Now, if you take your car, you build it, and you're doing 2/10 slower than your dyno when you're running it because you can't launch it or because you can't figure out the shift pattern, that's not a good live racer. Those cars are going to frustrate you, and that 2/10 margin could be the margin between winning and losing. So no, you do not want to get a car that is hard to launch and hard to shift. Weird shift patterns where you got to go instant second, skip to fourth, and then nitrous and go to 3500 and shift to 6, and no, too much work. Now, why do I say the Countach is not bad? Well, the Countach is a 11286. It'll run that 11.2 if you shift it right, launch it right. It's not a dyno buster. Now, people like dyno beaters because they go, oh, well, if I can beat dyno, right? I go into a lobby, I match the dyno, but I can beat it, I can destroy people. Yes, for a while. But the way live matchmaking set you up is very simple, very straightforward. When you set up a dyno, okay, whatever it is, 11.2s, it'll look at that dyno and go, okay, put them with other people that dyno around that. But with a caveat, when you go into that live lobby for the first time, right, when you jump in, the computer knows it's the 11.2 dyno, but it still wants to test you and find out what you're running. This is where you can kind of fool the system, so to speak, by running slow. And if you do it the right way, maybe taking a loss or two on the way, but if you do it right, what'll happen is your car will now be registered with what I call in another video lobby advantage, meaning your car will be in a lobby that is actually slower than your dyno. And that means the opponents may not even be able to run your dyno, and you can still win. Oh, that's a great concept. That means I am not beating dyno. I'm not even driving the car that hard, and I'm winning. That's where you want to be in live. That is at all times one of the best positions to be. This Taycan Turbo GT We Suck package is one of those cars that can pull that off because, again, of the low performance point in the 11-second lobbies and the high evo. The downside of this car is that it is slightly tricky to launch in comparison to most of the gas cars you have in the game. Does that make it a bad car? Absolutely not. Once you figure out the launch and practice a little bit, it is a very good car. Now, this car came in and did a 12.3. That means that the lobby is looking at moving me to 11.3 from a 11.6, 11.5 time range. That's not good. I don't want that. I want slower, not faster. But because I ran faster earlier, it's contemplating moving me to a faster lobby. So that's where you kind of have to be careful. This is why cars are disappearing, and I'm, not seeing opponents that I can run. Plus, it could also be this time of the night there's just not that many players on. Now, if you're facing that, what do I do then? Run slow. Run a slow run, sit in lobby for a little bit, and it'll reset you slightly slower. That's basically how I control the lobby I stay in. I just kind of run it at a time range that I can control and then duplicate that enough so that I can pull off slower runs without, beating my dyno. That's basically the key. Okay, still kind of on the fast side, but 11.4 on the 11.22, not terrible, not great, but not terrible. And again, we're seeing different opponents now because as you run each time, the computer's kind of trying to figure out who to give you that'll match approximately where you just ran. So see where I'm saying if you run too fast, that's a problem, is because, well, now you're getting faster and faster opponents popping into your visual lobby, because that's what the computer's trying to do, is trying to give you faster guys. In some cases like this, I'm even willing to take a loss just to stop running so quick and then wait in lobby and see if some slower cars pop in. And you'll see, additional opponents slowly but surely pop in as you sit, if you have the patience to do all that. You need to learn cars, right? You need to know that these tend to lobby well. You need to know that these tend to beat dyno. There are a lot of factors you have to consider. Same thing with these. These beat dyno a lot if you set them up right. So when you're picking your opponent, trying to get a slower opponent, you got to pick the right opponent. Jumping at the first dude that pops in, who happens to be one of these guys that's well set up, probably isn't going to help you. So, low performance point, high evo. Running safely in the lobby, running slow when you can. A car that's easy to shift, easy to control, and easy to get fusions for, those make for great live racers. Now, why isn't the Toyota GR Supra better in live than it is? Well, for some reason, the Supra, I don't know if it's in the game programming, it just doesn't match make well. Like, if you put it in the lobby, they automatically say, oh, this car is great, bump it up a little bit. So you end up with faster opponents outright. It could also be because it beats Dyno all the time and you probably ran it in live previously, you killed it. So running a car all out, and new players tend to do that because you want to win, running a car all out, especially faster than its dyno, is the quickest way to slowly but surely ruin your car for the purpose of live racing. So if I had to run my Supra all the way out the way I dynoed it, and it's faster than that, I am probably not going to do well. And again, it did not match make well because on a 11.2 dyno, well, the Nissan's kind of a special case too, but on the 11.2 dyno, I really want to run against 11.5 opponents, not 11.3. Okay. Now, who would be somebody like that? Well, here's where it's kind of tricky. That's a good live racer. That's a good live racer. That's the guy I would want to race. But here's the problem with this guy. I don't know if he's down-tuned. He could be a dyno buster, which means, yes, he's in here, but he can run like 7/8. Now, if he's set up normally, then that car is actually not that competitive. But if he's set up for beating dyno a lot, then it's not good. You're going to have dyno busters in almost every lobby, up to, say, even 7s, you can see them. But there'll be less number of cars. But in slower lobbies like this, it's very easy to see a lot of very fast cars that can run well under your lobby time, your dyno. You know, they just beat dyno a lot and they'll crush you. Those, I would say, just let it go, right? You don't have to push your car. You know what your car can run. So you decide if you want to push it or not. And if they're that quick, there's no reason to push it. And I'm not pushing my car, my Supra right now, because I don't like the lobby it's in and I don't want to run fast. 11.4 is certainly doable for my car, but again, when you're not trying to go faster and you're trying to go slower, you need to pull back a little bit. You got to take a few losses sometimes. Nothing wrong with that. Now, what is my dyno? Well, the dyno is right here. Okay, that's my dyno. And what does the car run? Well, if you run it all out, it should run about a tenth or two under that. So this is really an 11.0 car. But if you run 11.0 in 11.2, that means eventually the computer is going to say, oh, well, you're really 11.0 car, not 11.2 car. If they start giving you opponents that also run 11.0, they may run 10.8s. So what are you going to do? You're going to keep pushing. You're going to keep your car can't keep up. You start losing more and more. It's not worth it. Okay, so having self-control and sometimes, you know, putting your ego aside and just control your cars for the sake of making that RP and gaining those key wins, you sometimes have to take some losses. So in this game, sometimes you got to lose to win more. Kind of a weird concept, but that's how it is. That's stuff that you don't get when you're new. When you're new, all you remember or all you know is that, hey man, this is a racing game. I'm in it to win it. Well, you might be in it to win it. You're in it to win it for a bit, and then you're going to start losing a lot. Okay, and when you're new, you don't have that many cars you could throw at the game like this. You need to learn self-control. When you have 600 cars in your garage with over 100 live racers capable of live racing, then you don't have to. But when you have like 2 or 3 cars and you're already in the process of slowly but surely killing them, I would say a little self-control would definitely be more helpful. Now, I have all my cars kind of set up for the same lobby range on purpose, because then I can easily see who I'm up against, and I know most of these guys by name. I've seen them, I've raced them. So that's the good thing about setting up your cars in a particular lobby. And I know these Nissans all run like 11.3s and 11.2s, so they're kind of a pain in my behind when it comes to not wanting to push. Can I win? Yes. Do I want to keep racing them hard? Not really. But, you know, now and then, you got to get some wins. You can't just always take a loss. So here we're going to push it a little harder. I did try to slow down, but not enough. That's probably too quick. 11.3. Yeah, low 11.3s on my part. He actually ran 11.4. Is he going to re-challenge me? Probably not, since I don't have win-loss in my name. Some guys will swap with you for a bit. You know, if they have win-loss in there. Let me take 4-banger real quick. Again, Supra. Oh, he doesn't want it. Okay, this one, Dino Beater. So, question mark. This one, question mark. This one, not interested. Okay. I can be in here with that car fully maxed on my main account. It does 7s. Or low 8s or 7s in this lobby. Hold on. Okay. Now, I don't really have anybody that's capable of racing right now, so we're going to move on. So that's it. As far as live racing, you got to do it if you want to make RP. If you're going to do it, you're going to want to get a few cars ready. And here's my little garage worth of live racers. Minus that. That one, I would say, is not really usable. This, and that, and this are really good. They're all free acquired milestone cars. So you don't need to pay for those fancy purple star cars to really win in live. And out of these 4, these 2 are the easiest to get fusions for. So they got ready first. And these were kind of more of a slow burn type build. But I did manage to get the Porsche together. This is a good car. A little harder to launch, but good. Notice the numbers, right? This has the best numbers, second best average numbers. These 2 are pretty close. And then this one doesn't have as good numbers. So in the end, they're all in the same dyno range, same lobbies. But this one, matchmaking wise, sometimes get bumped a little quicker because its numbers are not as good. But none of these have bad numbers. Anytime you have about 1-to-3 ratio, you should be good. Okay. Parts selection is a big key of it. People get too hung up on you got to use this part, you got to use that part. Well, I'll tell you this. You got to use the parts that allow you to tune the car, transmission, nitrous, tire, and then after that, it's all variable. So you want to play with it so you get the lowest performance point at the highest evo, whatever number of parts you put in at a particular dyno. So it's 3 pieces fitting together. The parts, this, and this has to work together. You want the fastest of this at the lowest of that, which means the highest of this. However, there's another thing that's important, which is called a lobby bracket. And that's a tougher concept for a lot of players to understand, is that live racing is broken up into approximately, I would say, 3/10 range brackets to 5/10 range brackets, meaning starting from a solid number, 11 seconds, 11 to 11.3 it's considered a bracket. Like all the cars dyno in those ranges tend to fit together. 11.3 to 11.6 to 7 is one bracket. Your goal is always to land in the slower end of a bracket, meaning if I can be in 11.6, I don't want to be, stuck in 11.4 to 6 on the 11.4 side. I want to be on the 11.6 side. But when you're dynoing, if you know your car can do better than what the dyno says when it comes to matchmaking, you want the dyno on the faster side. So if the lobby says you can go as fast as 11.3, you want your car right on that edge, 11.3, 11.28, right? As long as it bumps down. So that's where the lobby range comes into play. That's a very tough concept because we don't actually know that is to be absolute truth. All we know is that from observational racing over the years, that once you get past a certain cutoff point on these numbers, for example, if I move my dyno to 11.17, I will absolutely not see any of those guys I was racing in any of the groupings again. I'm going to be with a completely different group that has different run times and different cars, and that's going to be what I'm going to be dealing with. So it's kind of tricky, but that is something to understand, that you're in groups of cars that are around the same dyno range. It's a matter of finding out what group you're in, and you always want to be in a group that's going to run on average slower than your dyno so you can win. So typical new player mistakes, same thing. Let's just go through them again. Running a car with no fusions, big mistake. Running too many upgrades because you're trying to hit a dyno is a mistake, right? Because that pushes up this and doesn't help with that. Picking a car that is too hard to drive, too hard to launch, not good. If you can't run dyno at the minimum, it's probably not a good car for you. However, picking a car that absolutely destroys dyno really easily, probably not good either, because you're not going to know enough to slow down and control your car. Then you're going to run your car all out each time, and the computer matchmaking will adjust you to faster and faster lobbies until your car can no longer win. I see guys come into lobby, they pop into my lobby and they throw up like a 200K bet, and I look at their car and go, okay, a no star in SXR. He's probably been winning for the past hour in his, whatever grouping he was, and he's all happy, figuring here's my chance to, get some cash. Comes in, got bumped up to me, comes in hard, throws that 200K down and get destroyed. You don't want to end up in that situation because it kind of sucks. But that's how you get there. Building a car with low fusion, high parts, running it too hard, all these things are not healthy for long-term use of your live racers. As you can see, I put some mileage on this Nissan without too much issue. And I didn't even really have extra parts for it. Versus, say, some of the newer live racer that I just acquired and built have very low mileage on it still. It's just the way it works out. When you have more and more time, when you start putting more and more mileage on the cars, you can then use more variety, and you'll see more cars that can do more in live for you. But as a beginner, you want to start off with one solid car and try not to kill it. After that, as you build more and more of these, you can start cycling through them. If one gets kind of ruined, you're not, it's not critical, you have other cars. But in the end, to make big RP in this game consistently, season after season, the live racing is almost unavoidable. What about Showdown? As a last piece, why I don't focus on Showdown as a new player, because one, you may not have the cars. Okay, I hate it when these pop-ups come up. You may not have the cars, and even if you do have the cars, they're probably not ready to do much. That's the problem with Showdown. I hate losing race after race after race in my somewhat built car because I don't have it ready. That is not fun. Versus I can go into live with that Nissan and probably win 80% or more of my races. That is fun. Now, you still should do Showdown because it is live racing as far as RP is concerned, and the rewards are really important if you're actually building elite tuner cars or you like to focus on them. So that's definitely important. But on my new account, on my free-to-play new account, I focus mostly on looking at the milestone cars, picking out the ones that the numbers look good when I start putting fusions in them. You want to see, particularly in stage 1, 2, and 3 upgrades, that the first 3 upgrades you put in, when you pop a fusion in there, you want to see like 100 plus Evo per fusion. That's usually going to lead to a decent car. If you put in there and it gives you like 15 Evo per fusion, that car is going to suck. And that's really part of the thing about low performance point high Evo cars. They gain a lot of those points from those fusions really, really quick, and you want to leverage that. All right, so that's a lot of information in this video, and it might be confusing to a lot of you guys that are not familiar with live racing as much. So feel free to kind of quiz me or ask me if there's anything you don't understand. I could always try to do a follow-up video. I've tried to talk about live racing in various videos over the years, and I find the topic gets so convoluted, there's so much to talk about, that it's hard to make a coherent video that people can follow to really explain live racing well. But I did what I can to kind of give you guys a baseline of what makes a car good, what makes how live racing kind of works. Feel free to ask me questions, and if you like the video, leave a like. If you like my channel and you want to see more of this kind of videos, well, subscribe, hit the bell. When I put up new videos, you get notified. And as always, thank you for watching my videos. I'll catch you next time.